Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world we're living in. So in this true crime video the story that I'm going to tell you about tonight, or the case that I'm going to talk to you about in this video, be prepared to get angry. And I want to give you a bit of a trigger warning because this does discuss the murder of 4 people and also one unborn child. So it's quite grim, to say the least. So just a warning there. Also, as I say, be prepared to get angry because it's one of those cases that didn't need to happen. There were so many red flags in this case. So this perpetrator, the perpetrator of this terrible act, was on probation for violent crimes, arson, was on curfew, but didn't stop them going ahead and taking 5 lives really that day. So this took place in the UK. This is the story of a homegrown killer, not an immigrant, a homegrown British killer. One of the worst, I think, in British history. And this took place in Chandos Crescent in Killamarsh, which is a normally quiet place near Sheffield, not that far from Manchester, in the north of England. And the victims were Terri Harris, 35 years old. Her unborn baby, just literally, Terri was newly pregnant. Now, this obviously isn't a photo of the baby. I just wanted to show an image to show that this was a person in the making. You know, it should not just be dismissed just because Terri was not very far gone in her pregnancy. This was a life that this person took. Terri's son, John Bennett, 13 years old. And his sister, Terri's daughter, Lacey Bennett, only 11 years old. And also her friend, who was on a sleepover at the house when this event happened, Connie Gent, or Gent, probably it should be pronounced. Poor Connie was staying over. She was having a great time. The 2 girls were having a great time. They spent the day making things to sell for charity. And then when the evening came, evil was waiting for them there in their own home, in the shape of Damien Bendall, who was the partner of Terri. He was living there, but he was on probation. He was on a curfew, but didn't stop him committing these terrible acts. And that's what you'll get angry. He was only 31 years old when he committed this act. Why did he do it? He's an ex-cage fighter, a history of violence. I just feel that he has a special seat reserved for him in hell, in the next world. You just think, you know, there's not much worse that you could do than what Damien Bendall did. And his terrible actions were fueled, surprise, surprise, by drugs, cannabis, cocaine. But how and why did this happen? How was it allowed to happen? Let's chat. So, it was the 18th of September 2021. 11-year-old Connie Gent was having an extra night sleepover with her friend, Lacey. Both of them were 11 years old. Connie was a typical happy young girl. Her dad said she enjoyed singing and dancing, and she loved Tik-Tok. Her friend Lacey lived in Chandos Crescent, Killamarsh, with her mum Terri, her brother John, 13, and Terri's boyfriend, Damien Bendall. So, Bendall and Terri had been in this relationship since they met on a dating app. Now, Damien had been allowed to stay at the house under curfew by his inexperienced social worker, after he'd already been convicted of arson. Also, he had a violent past and a history of violence towards women and children. Terri was not even aware of most of the things that he'd done. His social worker allowing him to stay there under curfew had not even been discussed with her. And much less Connie's parents would not have known about Damien's history. I mean, the thing is, how far do you go into checking into someone's past? Now, if you think, you're going to get into a relationship with someone and you already have children, you should really check into their past. I mean, big time, before you let them move in, especially if it's someone you've met on a dating app. So you don't know their history. It's not someone you've known for a long time, or you know people who know them. You've met this person on a dating app. I mean, to me, I just think, God, the eyes would tell you a lot, wouldn't they? But you've met them on a dating app, you don't know anything about them, and you're moving them in with your children, a boy and a girl, young boy and girl. Now, that to me is a no-brainer. You should check into their history. But then what about Connie's parents? You think, how have you got to check into the history of everyone, your child's friends' parents? Now it's feeling like you should do that as well. If your child comes home, and kids love sleepovers, don't they, boys and girls? Come home and say, I want to go and stay at whoever's. Should you check them out first? Check out their police history first before you allow them to go. It's terrible that you have to do that. But anyway, he was considered low risk by his probation officer. Low risk, despite having been on parole for arson and having a history of violence towards women and children. When it came to the inquest over these poor people's deaths, staff at the probation services, which were based in both Swindon and Chesterfield, they were the organisations that dealt with him. Swindon and Chesterfield, they had both dealt with Bendall in relation to previous offences, and they said at the inquest that they struggled with high workloads and stress. Now, these are people that are dealing with, it's a very important job, isn't it? It's an important job. It's a difficult job. I'm not saying it's not a difficult job, but it's just sometimes when you hear these cases, you do think, my God, how many more red flags do you need? That could have saved these children's lives, this woman's life, this unborn child's life. And it was also revealed at the inquest later on that as Damien Bendall, let's have another look at him, because I suppose we should look at him. As he was being fitted with an electronic tag following previous offences, when he told the officer who was fitting it, if this relationship goes bad, I'll murder my girlfriend and her kids. So this came out at the inquest. Now, excuse my French, but for fuck's sake, why was that not reported at the time? So a man with a violent history says openly, brazenly, and you'll see later when you watch his arrest video, he is open and brazen. If this relationship goes bad, I'll murder my girlfriend and children. Why was that not reported? Terri, the poor woman that was his partner, she should have been told about that, if nothing else. So why was it not reported? Or was it reported and it was completely ignored because of high workload and stress? Just feel like these children especially have been completely let down, but Terri also. So who knows what ignited his rage that day? But it seems that sometime on that Saturday, just as they were getting ready for bed, he lost the plot completely and he chased them from room to room with a claw hammer. Can you imagine the terror for those children and for Terri? He then stayed overnight at the house with the bodies. The police weren't called until the next day. And then the following morning, at some point in the morning, he took John's Xbox. So John Bennett, 13-year-old boy, had just brutally murdered as he was coming out of the shower with a claw hammer. He took his Xbox and sold it for drugs. I mean, this guy is a total piece of shit. It just don't get any worse than Damien Bendall, I think. And he went and bought some cigarettes. So let's have a look at the video. And have a look at a video that shows him going to get his cigarettes, while all these 4 bodies were laying in the house while he went off to get his cigarettes, and then just went back and, I don't know what, sat there and smoked, knowing that these children, oh dear, just unbelievable. So soon after that, though, he did ring up the police and he said, I've murdered 4 people. We're going to listen to that soon.
Basically, I need the police and the ambulance and that because I've killed 4 people.
Okay, just hold the line. Bear with me.
So yeah, he'd taken the lives of Terri and her unborn child, Lacey, John Paul, and Connie. Oh yeah, and just as you think it can't get any worse, He RAPD'd Lacey as she lay dying, this 11-year-old girl. Twice. So he told a taxi driver he'd had a mad night. Now, is there anything else this man could have done? There's nothing worse than what this man, he's killed all those people. He's RAPD'd an 11-year-old girl as she lay dying. He's stolen the boy that he's murdered's Xbox and gone off to sell it for drugs. It's not really, my God, there's not much lower down, is there, in the scum pond than Damien Bendall. Then he goes off and buys his bags. Calm as a cucumber. Look at his ears. The weirdo. God, he's such a creepy looking guy as well.
Alright, stand here. See you.
Right,
So,
we're told, I know what's going to happen.
Now, this is just a short excerpt of the arrest video. We're going to watch the whole arrest video that's been released. We're going to watch that soon. But this policeman, I know I say it in a lot of videos, I just feel for these policemen because they've gone along here not really knowing what they're walking into. They've had a phone call from him. I think the reason they're there, it's more like a welfare check because he rang his mum and he'd injured himself, he'd stabbed himself, and not very half-heartedly. And he'd phoned his mum and said that he had these wounds. So his mum had rang the police. I think this was more... So the police didn't know what they were walking into. And this guy, his face... well, you'll see it now, and he's the one who went on to discover the bodies, and the sort of body cam. Well, that hasn't been released of it, obviously. They wouldn't want to show the bodies, but also he was getting increasingly upset as he was discovering these bodies and realizing that what Damien said was in fact true. Because I think at first he didn't really, I think they thought was more a case of him doing something to himself, not really believed that he'd done anything to anybody else, but his face when he says it.
Well, I know it's going to happen to the prison, obviously, but again.
Why, what have you done? Have you done something to anyone else?
Yeah.
What have you done?
I've murdered 4 people.
Yeah, I've murdered 4 people. So this is the house. It was boarded up. God, imagine living next door as well. This trauma affects so many people. There's somebody lives in this house. And while all that was going on, they wouldn't have known, would they, what was going on? And they're living right next door. Anyway, this house, it has now been demolished. We're going to talk about that later as well. So yeah, pretty grim, isn't it? Pretty grim. Not many stories, in British crime history. I think this is, again, one of the very worst. Anyway. So, at 7:26 the next morning, Derbyshire police received a phone call from Dorset police. And that phone call was made by a relative of Damien. I believe it was his mum. And she indicated to the Dorset police that he had suffered a stab wound that was self-inflicted. So that's the reason, really, initially, that the police went round there. So Derbyshire police was alerted and officers were dispatched to Chandos Crescent, and they were met by Bendall when they arrived at 7:39, and they had no clue of the horror that was awaiting them. I really hope those police officers, have had counselling. Imagine that scene. The scene that they had to face. Okay, let's have a look at the video of the arrest now. Just must have been such a shock, don't you think? Terrible, terrible shock. But anyway, let's have a look at the arrest.
Basically, I need the police and the ambulance and that because I've killed 4 people.
Okay, just hold the line. Bear with me.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
Alright, come to me. Mate, have you got anything on you that you shouldn't have?
No, there's no weapons or nothing.
Right.
Right, do you just want to undo your coat? Have you armed yourself?
Yeah.
You have?
Have you stabbed yourself, mate?
I can see blood on your hands.
Yeah.
Anywhere else?
Just my chest, 4 inches in with a bread knife.
Can we have a look?
And one on the stomach. I bled quite.
With the bread knife. So, see, they're so solicitous of him, aren't they? They're worrying about his welfare. They're not realising the horror that they're about to see, the horror that this man has committed.
Right, do you want
Yeah. Can we go down
no, just stay there.
I just don't want to be in front of them.
Alright, just around the corner.
So he says, oh, can we go around the corner because I don't want to be in front of everyone. Oh, my goodness. No, he's so calm. He's just murdered all those people. And RAPD'd Lacey twice. And he's bothered about whether the neighbours see him or not.
All right, stand here. Stay here.
Right.
So,
We've told you, I know what's going to happen to you now, mate.
Well, I know it's going to happen
just
to go to prison, obviously, again.
Why? What have you done? Have you done something to anyone else?
Yeah.
What have you done?
I've murdered 4 people.
Yeah. Why? Have you done something to anybody else? Yeah, I've murdered 4 people. That policeman's face is a picture. And unfortunately for him, it was him who had to find out, you had to go in and see, discover that he was telling the truth, in fact.
He's been calm and compliant, but he's got some stab wounds to his chest. They're not oozing blood, but he's saying that his family are inside and that he believes he has murdered them.
Do you want to go?
Are you all right for me to go in?
Yeah. Up to that point, I think they were a bit sceptical that he had actually done it. Imagine that shock for that.
Damien, it's 07:47 hours. I'm arresting you on suspicion of murder. You don't have to say anything, but it may harm your defence. Do not mention when questioned something later rely on in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence. Your arrest is necessary to protect you from harm, to prevent your disappearance, for a prompt and effective investigation. Okay? We're going to get you up. We're going to put you in the back of the van. Stand up.
Poor guy, the policeman, having to find that, So we're quick to criticise the police, but we have to be quick to praise them as well. The things that they have to see, just awful, aren't they? Basically, awful. So in court, when it came to the court case, prosecution barrister Lewis Mabley KC told the court the defendant attacked them using a claw hammer, which he used to hit them over the head and on the upper body. So that's what that policeman had to find. It was perfectly clear none of the victims stood a chance. John Paul, he was in the bathroom. He was just out of the shower. Seems like they were all getting ready to go to bed. What triggered him, I don't know, on that particular occasion. But he was a time bomb, wasn't he? He was a bomb waiting to go off, that man. Forensic evidence showed that he RAPD'd Lacey twice as she was dying. Once downstairs and once again upstairs. Also, little Lacey, she had a ligature around her neck for some reason. Just grim, isn't it? So Lacey and John's father, Jason Bennett, had to identify his children after they died. He told ITV News, "I had to go and identify my children, and I kissed them because even though they'd gone through injuries, to me they were still beautiful. I kissed them, I held their hands, and I promised them I'd live their love through me." Now we're going to have a look at both the dads talking, like the dad of Connie Gent, Charlie Gent, and we're going to look at the dad of Lacey and John Paul speaking. Now, it's just Charlie speaking, Charlie Gent. It's very brief. He speaks very quietly, so it's not easy to hear, but we'll see how it goes. Let me just put this up.
Then it's all laugh out of me. Worst possible nightmare come true. Your worst, any parent's worst thought, come true. Like I said, still wake up. I hope it's all a dream, but it's not. I don't know where to begin. I'm still even trying to digest it.
So this is Connie's dad, and he says he just wishes it would have been him rather than her. You never take it in. I mean, just don't know how parents get over these kind of things. I haven't seen Connie's mum speaking. I don't know about Connie's mum, but maybe she just couldn't face it.
There are no words. I'm gonna miss my baby.
John pretended to be this fiery. I'm this fiery kid, but deep down he was just so gentle. And
so that now it's this Jason, who is John and Lacey's dad speaking.
Lacey was just a wind-up merchant all day, every day.
Jason Bennett's life.
It's all laugh out of me. Worst possible nightmare come true. Your worst, any parent's worst thought, come true. Like I said, still wake up. I hope it's all a dream, but it's not.
A dream, a nightmare, isn't it? Bless him.
Digest it. There are no words. I'm gonna miss my baby.
John pretended to be this fiery. I'm this fiery kid, but deep down he was just so gentle. And Lacey was just a wind-up merchant all day, every day.
Jason Bennett's life was torn apart when his children John and Lacey were killed. Damien Bendall murdered them, their mum Terri Harris, and their friend Connie Gent. He's now serving 5 whole life sentences.
I had to go and identify my children, and I kissed them. Because to me, even though what injuries they'd gone through, they were still beautiful. I kissed them both on lips, I kissed them on head, and then I held their hands, and I promised them that I'd live their love through me.
And Jason is keeping that promise, organising a football match. He, his family and close friends will take on Sheffield Wednesday legends. There'll also be a raffle and an auction of football memorabilia.
So this is a shirt from Jack.
This was a couple of years ago, but it's got a signed shirt from Jack Grealish.
Mr. Grealish, he's got his signature here in his shirt number 10, Jimmy Greaves, autobiography, signed. I just want it to be such a fun day. Again, some legends for family and friends to enjoy in memory of John, Lacey.
All proceeds will go to the Youth Cancer Trust, a charity the children helped to raise money for.
Selling bubblegum, doubles, have a good day.
During a video call to their dad, they were excited, telling him what...
So this was the video call from that same day that they were brutally murdered. And these are the things they were selling for the charity. And they sent this video call to their dad.
They were doing.
Free pack, 75p.
It was the final call they'd have with him.
They decided to buy sweets and things like that to sell on a stall that they'd make at home. That was the last time that I got to see him. And they were just showing me the stall and the sweets. And I just said, you know what? I'm so proud. I'm so proud of you. So then I always had it in my mind that I need to do something for this charity when I'm strong enough and keep flying the flag for John and Lacey.
The charity provides free holidays for young cancer patients.
We're a really small charity, so literally every penny counts.
Something positive that came out. God, you're searching for something positive to come out of this case.
But to have that connection as well with Jason and to have his story and to know that this is what his children wanted, that's really special.
And in turn, Jason is being helped, training for the match, and he has something positive to focus on.
No matter how bad your days might feel, that there can be another day where you can get out of bed and it could be a good one.
How proud do you think Lacey and John would be of the dad, of you?
They'll be so proud. I'm doing amazing things that I'd have never, ever done. And I'm doing it through their love.
Oof. Hard, isn't it, to just hard to comprehend, really. You know what? See, there's another thing as well. You know, he, as a father, a strange father. Again, it's so difficult. You don't know who your partner is inviting into their home. You know, I'm not blaming Terri because it seems like Terri didn't know you see. You feel like there needs to be background checks before you. If you've got children, I just beg anyone who's watching, who's either in Terri, whatever position Terri was in, or you know knows somebody who's in that position. Do a background check, especially someone that they've just met on the internet. And they don't, you know, it's different if it's someone you know, or your friends know, or your family know. Even then, it's you should really still do a background check, I think. You know, you've got to. She took that man. He was like a Trojan horse going into her house, wasn't he? He was evil. You know, poor Terri. She just sort of. I don't know. He's apparently got psychopathic traits. That's what was said. So he'll be one of those people that can hide in plain sight, you know. And she invited him into her house to live, and she didn't realise that was a viper she was taking in. A danger to her and her children. And that baby she was carrying, it was his baby. You know, I don't know if he already had children or not. I didn't research that, but actually, I'm going to just have a quick look now. Oh, I hope not for their sake. So he obviously didn't care. You know, not only that she was pregnant, but she was pregnant with his child. I can't see anything here about him already having children. Apparently, Terri Harris's mum said he was a master manipulator. Said he initially seemed charming when they started a relationship, but that her daughter's behaviour started to change. I mean, how often do we hear that story? They always start off charming, don't they? She said that eventually he was always with her. There wasn't a time he wasn't with her. It was just constant. And she started to change the way she dressed. She was quieter. She'd always been a tomboy, but when she started going out with him, it was always tight shorts, low-cut tops. Her hair became bright red. It was as though he was parading her around. So the reason he was on parole when this, I don't know if Terri knew the full details of his past, but it was arson. It was he got a suspended sentence for arson, but he had a previous history of violence. He had other things. It's what I mean, red flags. Okay. So Damien Bendall was given 5 whole life tariffs. So he was given a life sentence, full life sentence, no possibility of parole for each one of those murders. Not for the baby, unfortunately. Well, nothing, the baby was probably, she was only recently pregnant, let's say. So why, the baby wasn't included in the sentencing, which is unfortunate, to be honest, because that was a life. Another life that he extinguished. Anyway, he will never come out of prison. That's one good thing. But I've got something interesting to tell you about his time in prison shortly. What we're going to just look at quickly now is this is a Sky reporter reporting on the, the verdict, on the case, on the ongoing case. And, it's not often that you see reporters getting emotional. That's their job, isn't it? To be unemotional, if you like, to just report the news, to not take sides one way or the other. But occasionally, it just comes through, isn't it? I quite like to see it when their true sort of feelings come through, because, it's just more human, isn't it? And we saw it with the Southport killer, with Sarah Jane Meon, Sky News. She got upset as she was talking. It just must be so hard, reporting on these cases. The only good thing that Damien Bendall did was he did pled guilty to everything. So that is something, that is literally the one little grain of humanity in this man. He knew that he would get a whole life tariff, and he did plead guilty. He didn't try. I mean, at the end of the day, I suppose the evidence was overwhelming. He confessed to it as he was arrested. But as far as the RAPE is concerned, he pled guilty to everything. Okay, let's just have a look at this video. I want to show you of this Sky News reporter reporting on the result of the trial, or some part of the trial. And as I say, takes a lot for a reporter to get upset. That's their job. That's what they do. But this one did.
Today's court proceedings that Damien Bendall entered guilty pleas, guilty to the murder of his partner, Terri Harris, who was in the early stages of pregnancy with their child, guilty to the murder of 11-year-old Lacey Bennett and 13-year-old John Bennett, who were Terri's children from a previous relationship, and also guilty to the murder of 11-year-old Connie Gent, who was Lacey's friend, who was staying at the home in Killamarsh in Derbyshire for a sleepover on the night that these terrible events unfolded. He also pleaded guilty to the rape of 11-year-old Lacey Bennett, a rape that this court has been hearing was carried out as Lacey lay dying in her home. The details are just horrendous. He took a claw hammer and he hit his victims around the head. He chased them around the house. They were all found in different rooms of the house with horrifying head injuries.
Can you imagine the terror they all must have felt, but especially the children? Look at him, he's smirking on that photo. God, this is, he really is going to hell, this guy.
We saw video of the two girls, Lacey and Connie, earlier in the day. The children had spent that day making a sweet stall, selling sweets to the neighbours to raise money for cancer research. And the police understand that it was as the children were getting ready for bed that Damien Bendall embarked on this terrifying, murderous rampage around the house. Now, we know that he was a drug addict. We know that he'd been trying to get hold of drugs. It's believed that he was under the influence of drugs, but it's described as an inexplicable and motiveless attack. Now, the following morning, he then took the Xbox of the young boy who he'd murdered, took it to a drug dealer's house to exchange the Xbox for drugs. He spoke to his mother on the phone, and she then called police to report that she thought that her son had self-inflicted stab wounds. And it was as the police arrived at the house, Damien Bendall made a bizarre call to 999 to say that the police had arrived, but that he'd murdered 4 people. Now, we saw video that from the police body-worn cameras of those officers arriving. They clearly didn't believe Damien Bendall's claims at first that he'd murdered 4 people, but then we heard audio from those body-worn cameras as an officer went round the house, clearly increasingly upset by what he was seeing. And
yeah. Now, they cut that off, didn't they, the body cam that they've released? In Britain, you never get the full body cam ever, even, with the bodies blurred or so. You just don't. Anyway, that's never been released. But you can imagine, can't you, that policeman going around realising that what the man had said is true, that he had actually killed 4 people.
You could just hear him say the words, "They're gone, they're gone." Aww. As I said, members of the families were in court. We heard some victim impact statements. John Bennett, the father of Lacey and John Paul, described his life as like living in a continual nightmare. He said, "I won't see them grow up. I won't be given the opportunity to be a grandpa. I'm lost without them." And Charles Gent, the father of Connie Gent, said, "My heart is completely broken. This will haunt me for the rest of my life." Now, Damien Bendall's barrister has accepted that a whole life tariff would be acceptable in this case, and Bendall's going to be sentenced this afternoon.
Yeah, so he got 4 whole life sentences, but yeah, you could tell that reporter there, she was really upset. So it's not easy. I get reporters or other people that get bad press a lot of the time, but when you see the humanity of them come through like that, it's not easy reporting on those kind of things, is it? I don't think I've seen that reporter again since. She probably said, "That's it. I don't forget this job. I don't want to do it anymore." So you'd think, at least there he is. 4 life sentences, put into prison, never going to see the light of day. Goodbye, good riddance. Forget this piece of shit. But no, it's reported that while he's been in prison, he's in, I think it's Franklin Prison in Durham, apparently. So since he's been in there, it's been reported he attacked a fellow inmate. Guess what with? A claw hammer. So your guess is as good as mine as how the F he got hold of a claw hammer. So this is a man who's killed 4 people with a claw hammer. So apparently it was in a jail workshop at Franklin Prison in Durham. He's attacked another prisoner with a claw hammer again, his favourite weapon of choice. And he was gravely injured. This was last year. Now, I can't find any results of that. I can't find any charges or anything on the internet any more than that. Just that he'd reportedly attacked a fellow inmate. left him gravely injured with a claw. Oh, God, just thought of him doing exactly the same thing to this guy. I mean, the other guy might be a piece of shit for all I know, but even so, how was this guy? What if he'd attacked a prison officer? I mean, what the fuck is going on there? You've got a man who's murdered 4 people with a claw hammer, and he's allowed to have one again. Oh, my God. You might as well just put, Jack the Ripper in prison and give him a knife. Oh, just, fill your boots. We need to get rid of a few prisoners anyway. I can't find any more details. I think they're probably just trying to keep that shit quiet. That hasn't come out at all, any more news about it. So I'd like to know where he got the claw hammer from. But anyway. And then during June and July 2023, that house where these crimes had taken place was demolished. And you could see it was a semi-detached property, and it had stood boarded up since the murders with only a small plaque in honour of the deceased on a cherry tree in the garden. That was the only indication of what had happened there. So this was at the house, this last house here. You can see the forensic tent in front there. I mean, it looks like quite a nice sort of area, doesn't it? And then this was the demolition. So it's been demolished. Probably a good thing. They quite often do that, don't they? These, demolished places where terrible things have happened. So, what on earth can we learn from this terrible case? It really does make you wonder, doesn't it? There were so many red flags, but none of them saved this pregnant woman and these 4 innocent children, if you include the baby. So, one more little video that I just want to show you, talking about the probation sort of failings. Let's have a look.
Dangerous failings by the police at the start of the programme. The probation service has been found wanting 2 today in the case of Damien Bendall. He was under the service's supervision when he murdered his partner.
They have to bear some responsibility, because if you can't see these glaring red flags, what chance have other cases got?
Her children and a friend of one of the children. An inspector's report says all the danger signs from his past were there, yet the probation service allowed him to live with his partner in Kilmarsh in Derbyshire with devastating consequences.
They should have been better protected. Terri Harris, her children John Paul and Lacey Bennett, and her friend Connie Gent.
Have you armed yourself?
Yeah.
They were all killed by Terri's violent partner, Damien Bendall, who also raped 11-year-old Lacey.
What have you done? I've murdered 4 people.
But he could have been in prison were it not for multiple failures by probation officers to recognise the risk he posed.
It's just a mess, isn't it? It's calamity after calamity.
Charlie Gent can scarcely believe the volume of basic errors in today's report. His daughter Connie was killed while on a sleepover with her friend.
If they'd have done just a basic PNC check, then, maybe they'd all still be here today. It could have quite easily been prevented, I think. The whole entire system's broken.
The entire system's broken. It could have been prevented. It should have been prevented. If Terri would... Thing is, you send your daughter off for a sleepover with her friend. What have you got to do? Police checks on, both the parents. I mean, what's going on? Just can't believe it. He'll be feeling guilty. Their dad will be feeling guilty. They'll all be feeling guilty. The person who's responsible, of course, is Damien Bendall. But the probation service need to take some responsibility, I think.
Really broken.
Bendall had a long history of violence. But when he was convicted of arson in 2021, he was given a suspended sentence after probation officers wrongly classed him as low risk to women and children.
Low risk.
They ignored an allegation of domestic abuse from a former partner and police concerns of a sexual threat to girls. He was allowed to live here with Terri Harris and her children under a curfew order, although she wasn't even consulted about it. And the report found many more missed opportunities to recognise the danger, but Bendall's probation officers were underqualified and overworked.
From assessment to the court report to his supervision in the community, the quality of that work by probation was of an unacceptable standard and well below what was required and what the public, I think, have a right to expect.
But he says some of the issues in Killamarsh are common and that the probation service as a whole is unfit for purpose at assessing risk. This former probation officer, who didn't want to be identified, says staff are overstretched.
When you're stressed, when you're strained, when you're anxious, when you're overworked, your decision making may well not be the best it has. Sometimes I used to see it as spinning plates, and sometimes you dropped a plate and hope that maybe something too bad didn't happen.
My God, like spinning plates, sometimes you dropped a plate and you just hope that something too bad didn't happen. These are people's lives, children's lives. Children mean nothing in Britain, honest to God. You go out there and rob a bank, do something against, the elite or whatever, or, even bloody benefit fraud or something like that, you get worse sentences.
Last week, Charlie and the other victims' families received a personal apology from the head of the probation service.
Great.
What was it like to hear their apology?
A bit disappointing. Is that it?
Yeah,
that's what you thought?
Yeah, I felt a little bit angry. I felt like laughing at him, to be fair. 4 people have died. It's like the worst, well, yeah, it's the worst thing that's ever happened to me anyway, but it's completely destroyed families. Something definitely needs to be changed, isn't it?
The government says domestic abuse and child safeguarding checks are now mandatory for offenders on curfew.
Yeah,
it says it's recruiting thousands more frontline probation staff.
Good.
What happened here shows how important it is that things improve. Ben Chapman, News at 10.
Well, these people can't be brought back now, can they? The ones that Damien Bendall, the damage he did, can't be made better. But hopefully, if something, I don't know, some lessons can be learned. So I'm lighting a candle for these victims. It's a very sad story. Thank you for caring about them. Thank you for listening to it. These stories are difficult to listen to, but the whole point of telling these stories is so that it doesn't happen again. Hopefully, create awareness. People should get angry. Write to your MP. How many people in your area are like Damien Bendall out there, on curfew with all this violent history. Nobody's safe while people aren't, accounted for properly, given proper sentences. The prisons might be full, but, let some of the people out that are in there for not paying the TV license or benefit fraud or something that's not harmful, violence towards people. Let them out. Get these sort of people like Damien. He should have been, arson. And also with some antecedents of violence and stuff like that and all the red flags that the police mentioned. He should never have been on a suspended sentence. So all those red flags, but none of them saved this pregnant woman and these 4 innocent children, if you include the baby. So rest in the arms of angels. John Paul Bennett, 13. Connie Gent, 11 years old. Lacey Bennett, also 11 years old. And Terri Harris, 35, and her unborn baby. And as far as Damien Bendall is concerned, The hell you're living in now is nothing to the hell you're hopefully going to find in the next world. Okay. Thank you for watching. I'll see you really soon in the next video. And until then, may your God always go with you. Bye.